If you're a fan of the Souls series with a constant hunger for games that scratch the lofty itch FromSoft creates, this game was made for you. I've made videos on the best Souls-likes, defining the subgenre as a simple way to describe games fans of the Souls series will likely enjoy. They vary on a spectrum of sharing design elements frequently used in FromSoft's playbook, to attempts at making spiritual clones to their masterpieces. When it comes to the latter, Mortal Shell is the new gold standard. If you want a high-level breakdown of game mechanics, I recommend checking out my video on the beta from July. Today I'll be expanding on those beloved and reviled takeaways as they shape my view on this new quality peak for pure Soulslikes. I'd like to thank PlayStack for providing me an early review copy and an extra copy to give away for PS4. I'll be streaming the game today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at twitch.tv/thedemocracy. Come hang out with us and I'll choose a random viewer mid-stream for the giveaway. Without further ado, let's dive into Mortal Shell. The combat system is exactly what you'd expect. Stamina and HP must be managed against enemy hordes. Offense consists of light and heavy attacks that can combo with varied input sequence, running attacks, and even a special weapon art like super move. Defensive maneuvers include running, quick steps, rolls, and parries. Mortal Shell's special sauce to shake up these clashes is hardness. During any of the aforementioned options, or standing still as a statue, you can embody one by becoming rock solid. Your hardened exterior allows you to tank a single hit. This adds another wrinkle to the combat structure, allowing for creative saves during poor attack or roll timing, and provides reliable openings thanks to enemies recoiling on hit. It's an entertaining addition that I thoroughly enjoyed utilizing. Unfortunately, the recoiled openings simplify the strategic equation. Instead of balancing all your options into complex mind games, most combat encounters can be filtered into a single strategy.
I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
Every enemy with relentless attacks. There's no fear in reckless spam because you have a get out of jail hard card. Attack wildly, rock up at the first sign of attack, continue unloading as the enemy reels from your firm resolve, then dodge away if it lives long enough to attack again. By that time, the short cooldown should be over. Go back to start and begin. There are very few enemies that use long enough combos to make this Unga rock hard bunga mashing game plan non-viable. Enemy numbers and said long attack strings can create enough pressure for you to snap out of it, but those moments are few and far between. The loop remains fun regardless, and ultimately that's all that matters. Still, it's important to note this feature isn't a galaxy brain game changer. The other attempt at adding layers to combat comes through empowered riposte. As you attack, you gain resolve. You can either dump it into stylish supers for massive damage, or parry and get a special counter. As you progress, you get different riposte variants. Some are defensive, such as healing you on top of mild damage to the parried enemy, while others go full offense like the Husk going ham in a follow-up flurry. This is where the Mascherino Insta-Turtle strategy gains momentum. Quick attacks in succession build resolve. That can be used in a parry during your hardness cooldown for bonus HP or damage. It rewards high skill quick twitch plays in a satisfying way. These two additions don't reinvent the wheel in dramatic fashion, but they do stoke the flames enough to evolve existing hack and slash combat methodologies with a unique flavor. A taste that expands through the shell system. Waking up as a blue variant of the creepy white robots from Westworld, you slink your way into fallen warriors through flashy. These battle-ready casings found through the world exploration come in 4 models. Their differentiation comes from varied HP stamina presets and distinct upgrade paths that shape their playstyle. The starting warrior has high HP and modest stamina. His skills center around making the most of hardness. If you want to be firm with a consistent readiness and longevity that makes ER doctors sweat, he's your man. Then there's the, weenie class? I guess self-support is a more delicate name for it. Each skill provides more health, healing, or resolve in some form. Resolve can lead to more damage, and this class would increase survivability, but I found it such a weak offensive option compared to the next two that I spent all of 10 minutes with it. The squishiest class has big dick stamina to compensate. The skills synergize well by giving a decent chance for damage to be converted to stamina instead of HP, along with abilities to make you do more damage the less stamina you have. That implies that you've attacked a lot, which can help inflict poison damage, something also enhanced by this class. I love the unique way these 3 offer different paths to match your playstyle. There's just one problem. The 4th class Eridan is broken. He has the biggest health bar and enough stamina to get the job done when matched with his insane offensive skills. For starters, he has a skill that gives a passive 15% increase to HP, a bar that is already gargantuan. This survivability works deviously with his kill streak bonus. Every enemy you kill notches a single point on this counter. The more it increases, the more damage you deal. It does reset if you're knocked out of your shell, a sequence where your husk freezes enemies briefly and can crawl back into the that shell for a full HP second chance. In my entire playthrough, this happened to me a single time. Guess what my kill streak looked like when I beat the game? The damage increase was absurd, especially when you consider his solo kill skill. Aridin gets another boost when he fights a single enemy, the ultimate boss slayer. Oh, and he has an increased chance to stagger enemies with every single hit. Using the multi-hit hammer and chisel in combination with these buffs made what I assume were meant to be hardy enemies into fragile pushovers. It's easy to stay alive in a single encounter thanks to his HP reserves, with healing readily available in between encounters for those patient to keep the kill streak running into the hundreds. Racking up an impressive number like that was insanely fun. It created a headcanon of becoming a downhill snowball warrior that feeds off of victims. But he's so good, it's hard to justify using the other 3 shells other than for the sake of variety. It is commendable that each shell offers a unique way to play, the most important element being that they are all fun to play. Even if Aridin curb stomps the game, I had a blast doing it. To be fair, the natural progression seems intended to give Aridin to you in the final third of the game, its most challenging stretch. It's just that I happened upon him very early in my playthrough due to the sprawling level design. I was very critical of the beta's linear slice of Mortal Shell's pie. Let me reverse course to say the full product is deceptively massive. The same wooded area from the beta is Fallgrim, your overworld. Within this overworld, you have one checkpoint. The game points you there right at the beginning, but I of course went in the opposite direction. I like to explore as much as possible before progressing the main objective. What I didn't realize is that there would be no checkpoints and that this was an overworld, not a dedicated level. So as I explored the insanely extensive lengths Fallgrim stretches to, I eventually found 3 exits. I knew from the beta that this would lead to a checkpoint in a new area. But as is true of most Soulslikes, taking the checkpoint means respawning enemies. After 2 hours of exploring a huge map and clearing it all out, I had no desire to fight through those hordes again for a mere pit stop. It wasn't until I reached the 3rd exit that looked like a dramatic shift to a new environment that I decided to proceed. There's a tough enemy guarding the entrance who I'm sure is meant to deter you from getting in early on, but that was not going to be enough to stop me after all the effort I put in to reach it. Passing into the land of guards awards you with Aridin. What I didn't realize is this new area was actually one of the 3 dungeons. Your overall goal in the game is to plunge into the full depths of these dungeons, defeat the boss within, and obtain an item that changes the world. Then you have to backtrack all the way to that initial checkpoint in Fallgrim. The dungeons have excellent interconnectivity to assist with this, but Fallgrim is a nightmare. First, because every enemy changes into the most annoying standard enemy, the imps. Your movement is rather slow, and this is one of the fastest enemies in the game. Throwing 4 or 5 at you at once can be devastating and super annoying. The real problem is the lack of visual cues in Fallgrim. Everything looks so similar that it can be dizzying trying to navigate your way through. If you're the type of player that isn't satisfied until you've explored every nook and cranny of a level, prepare to barrel through a confusing labyrinth to reach your goal. It's a shame because the overworld interconnectivity actually is excellent. The environment throughout just looks so similar you'll have a hard time telling one part from another. I'll give major props to the dungeons for having a drastically different aesthetic, but prepare for some of them to go on as long as the overworld, if not longer. Particularly the 3rd area that, while gorgeous, creates so many branching paths it'll make your head spin. I eventually threw in the towel at seeing it all. The overall exploration is mighty enjoyable, the environments are aesthetically pleasing, and the interconnectivity has clear thought behind it. Divvying up these large slices of land into smaller portions would have made them much easier to navigate, with increasingly differentiated visuals helping even further along with increasing the area roster. It's solid in its current state, but it could have been great with those few tweaks. In your dungeon dives, you'll find a weapon altar at each entrance. These teleport you to the tutorial realm to fight Hatter, an AI version of yourself that fights using a weapon you'll claim upon victory. I love the concept of fighting for the right to wield a new weapon against a boss that showcases its strengths. There are only 4 weapons, but each feels very distinct from the others. You'll have new enemy types within each dungeon to test your new toys on, which really helps make each feel special to explore. Their design is all well differentiated, keeping the formula fresh and forcing you to adapt your combat habits around their movesets. At the dungeon core, you'll find the bosses, but for the sake of not spoiling the experience with them, I'll save my thoughts for a boss ranking coming soon. I will at least say they demand the highest combat expectations of the player, and to help snap you out of the attack spam, harden, and dodge loop. Of course, you can't avoid damage forever. We all get hit sometimes, turning to our healing reserves to stay in the fight. I was extremely critical of the healing system in the beta, relying on ridiculously slow gradual heals that needed to be farmed from the environment. I am happy to say the developers clearly heard the feedback. Instead of mushrooms healing 40 HP over 60 seconds, they heal 30 HP over 30 seconds. That is until you reach maximum familiarity after consuming 10, and then the healing speed becomes much faster. Unfortunately, the farming aspect was not addressed. Mushroom spawns are scattered widely across each of the 4 areas in locked locations. After roughly 4 minutes, you can grab another shroom. This is extremely boring and highly punishing to struggling players. If you get dominated, you'll be stuck in a loop of mushroom foraging. This assumes that you can even reach the very well-spaced spawns with plenty of enemies in between. If you want a tip on this, before the final boss, there was one remedy I found to help. If you kill all the enemies in a farming path, you can run through looting shrooms and quit out when you grab the final one in your path, which will spawn you at your last checkpoint. Following the path that I've been speeding up on screen, I was able to farm 7 shrooms every 5 minutes. I'm sure there's gonna be more optimal paths discovered, but that's not really the point. The point is that it is absolutely ridiculous that this will be necessary for some players. Boring repetitive backtracking to get baseline critical items to playing the game is awful design, especially when other games in the genre already have an easy answer. A certain amount of heals from checkpoints, that's it. There is at least the element of converting resolve into heals through empowered riposte, but missing them is costly. I have no problem struggling in fairly designed combat, but I do have a problem farming for healing as a prerequisite to reasonably participate in that opportunity. Allowing for endless heal farming creates another issue. We'll call it the life gem conundrum. When you have a virtually infinite source of healing available, it takes so much of the tension out of the gameplay loop. As long as you can win each individual fight, you're guaranteed a full heal as long as you collect a large healing reserve. Doing so in this game is excruciatingly dull, so I doubt you would want to. But if you're willing to dedicate an hour to the path I showed, that would be nearly 90 heals. That's more than enough to heal you to full dozens of times. I'm fairly certain the developers took inspiration from Demon Souls here. I even had one of them mention to me that they love seeing representation of that game on my channel, so I'm pretty sure they're big fans and confident that it's likely. There's a reason that system was abolished. Farming sucks, and unlimited heals lead to shaky balance in a game that relies on difficulty. All of the previous points have led me to that ever-present word when discussions surrounding Souls and its contemporaries are discussed. I'm sure you're curious yourself. How does the difficulty compare? Is it brutally tough but rewarding? My honest answer is no. When you consider the potential girthy healing reserves, hardness allowing you to avoid punishment for bad combat mistakes, and the strength of Eridan's might, you end up snowballing into a force of nature the game struggles to resist. So is it brutally tough? No. But is it rewarding? Absolutely. The lengthy levels may outstay their welcome a bit, but they are brilliant catalysts to match what I just mentioned. There's a reason my kill streak reached such ridiculous heights. The expansive areas are filled to the brim with enemies. Unless you farm those 90 shrooms and can flawlessly rock out 100% of the time, those hordes will chip away at you in a battle of attrition. No single encounter is insanely difficult in a vacuum, but the pressure of maintaining your streak, really long gaps between checkpoints, and limited healing without farming makes progressing through feel intense. Embracing that tension produces rising adrenaline as you massacre your way through. There's this strange balance struck of a satisfying power trip and a genre you normally want to beat you down. I found satisfaction in maintaining my streak and overcoming the increasingly challenging enemy configurations with that power. Seeing the damage payoff continue to rise throughout an entire playthrough was an unexpected addiction. The challenge became about maintaining high performance on my end, and the game did have moderately tough sections to test the power I earned. That was immensely rewarding. The only concern here is that this maniacal rise to power that relies on staying alive removed death from the equation. In my entire playthrough, I only died 4 times. 3 of those were to the perpetual hardest boss in the Souls series, gravity. A deadly circumstance that doesn't remove you from your shell, which is the requirement for losing your streak. Only having that streak reset once was a huge part of racking up an insane kill count. Death is a huge part of increasing runtime in this genre. It's why my first playthrough of Demon Souls all those years ago took me nearly 50 hours, and today I can beat the game casually in under 8. With veteran skill and game knowledge, you don't die as much, which drastically reduces the game's length. With my low death count in mind, Mortal Shell clocked in at just under 10 hours. Granted, that's only a single playthrough. The 4 different shells and weapons create loads of enticing allure to replay the game, not to mention there's always New Game Plus to dabble in. Though I will note that going into New Game Plus was still no match for Eridan's damage output. Your mileage may vary here, but it's something worth considering when making your decision to buy in. The game is priced at $30, and personally, I think it's a steal. Give me a masterpiece level game with a 10-hour runtime over an average 50-hour experience any day of the week. I love games that respect my time, and while I wouldn't say Mortal Shell is masterpiece caliber, it is a phenomenally executed effort from a small development team I can't wait to see more from. As a final note for you lore buffs out there, this game is delightfully cryptic in ways I'm sure you're gonna enjoy. The overall story premise is very simple, but there's an eerie aura of mystery surrounding your journey that creates an enticing atmosphere. NPCs and their quests seem much more limited, but they were at least there. It's a small part of the experience, but one worth mentioning is a cherry atop this great game. Though there are glaring flaws, the positive elements Mortal Shell has to offer outshine them in a compelling way. There are loads of Souls-likes that share the essence of what makes the genre great, but there are so few that capture the exact formula FromSoft wields to create their masterpieces. Mortal Shell, while not perfect, is without a doubt in my mind the new gold standard in that imitation arena, with plenty to set itself apart as its own experience worth taking part in. But of course, that's just my opinion. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the video and the game when you get your hands on it. If you'd like a more in-depth look at the game, come join me on Twitch at 3 PM Eastern Time where I'll be giving away a copy for PS4. I hope to see you all there, but even if you can't join, you'll have a boss ranking to look forward to in the coming days, plus a 40-minute Ghost of Tsushima review essay I've been working on for weeks. Until then, I want to thank you all for watching today, much love to you, and I'll see you in the next video.